Many people ask, why did the United States actually start this war and why now? But let's ask a different question. What would have happened if they hadn't started this war? But first, what is actually happening? What is really happening is not visible. I am just an ordinary observer. What cards do the participants have? Who is actually winning? Let's begin. Let's start with gasoline. So, of course, you've noticed that gasoline prices have gone up again. This is not an accident and not because of the oil companies' greed. This is a direct consequence of the war, which may be happening 10,000 kilometers away from your home. Well, as they say, it's already reached into your wallet. The Strait of Hormuz is not just abstract geography. Every fifth barrel of oil in the world passes through it. When Iran closed it, the market reacted instantly. Oil prices jumped from 65 to 115%. This affects the price of gasoline, the cost of delivering goods, and the price of products in stores. Here's what's interesting. The U.S. imports very little oil through the Strait of Hormuz. We were talking about 2% of our oil coming from there. And Trump said, we don't need it. And indeed, we can very easily replace it or simply increase our own production. But the price of oil is global. When it rises there, it rises everywhere. This is a lesson in globalization. A globalized economy turns someone else's war into our own personal problem. Every time you pay at the gas station, you're paying for geopolitics. There's only one question. Is it worth it? Now, people often ask, has World War III already started? Let's figure it out honestly, without panic and without comforting lies. Technically, no. But look at the list of participants. The US, Israel, Iran, Hezbollah, Assad, Russia indirectly, and for now China. Well, almost neutral, but interested. NATO, Greece, and Cyprus are under threat. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the Emirates. Oh, right, Iranian missiles landed on the territory of Cyprus. That's a British military base. Greece has deployed frigates. This is the classic definition of a world war. When a conflict involves several major powers in multiple theaters of war, by that criterion, we're already on the threshold. But there's a fundamental difference between 1914 and 1939. None of the sides had nuclear weapons back then. But now they already have them or will soon. But this naturally restrains a direct confrontation between the US and Russia. For now, it restrains it. A third world war, in the classical sense. Ground armies, occupations, surrenders. There isn't one, and there probably won't be. But a world war of a new kind. Economic proxy hybrid. Gentlemen, we're already in it. Now the nuclear threat. We've started talking about it. Recall when everyone was scared about the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine? Well, Iran has its own Zaporizhia, and it's already been fired at. By order, 4 times in fact. So, Bushehr, it's called Bushehr, an operating nuclear reactor on the shore of the Persian Gulf. If you destroy the power lines, as Trump threatens, the cooling system will shut down. What happens then? The reactor starts to melt down. Radioactive contamination goes where? Into the Persian Gulf. Evacuation zone, several hundred kilometers. At risk, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain. Western media hardly talk about this. When Russia fired near Zaporizhzhia, there was hysteria all over the world. And now it's like no one even notices. By the way, why do I still not understand? A nuclear disaster in Iran is not just an Iranian problem. It's a problem for the region and, in fact, for the global economy. Oil at $200 a barrel is nothing compared to a radioactive Persian Gulf. Now, with that in mind, let's think, will Trump bomb the power plants? Tonight at 8 p.m. U.S. time, the deadline expires. Washington time. Trump says if Iran doesn't open the strait, the whole country will go dark. Iran has placed tens of thousands of women next to power plants. A woman is not considered a human being by Iranians, but Americans see her as a living being. Iran is, of course, exploiting the psychological difference. This is already the third deadline that Trump has set. He postponed the previous one. This time, the rhetoric has escalated to the limit. An entire civilization will die tonight. After that, the planet will be almost completely destroyed. There will be nothing left. Negotiations through Pakistan are ongoing right now. Now, the deadline and Trump are tools of pressure, not part of a fixed schedule. We all understand this perfectly well. He has already postponed it several times, but each postponement costs him trust. If nothing happens this time, then Iran won't take the next deadline seriously at all. So in a way, Trump has cornered himself. Either bomb and provoke a disaster, or don't bomb and lose personal influence, or bomb something completely different. Something unexpected for us. Now, the involvement of other countries that seem not to be participating. Russia. Officially, Russia is neutral. Unofficially, it provides Iran with satellite images, drone tactics, and intelligence data. This changes things. Western intelligence has recorded that Russia shares real-time intelligence with Iran, and we share real-time intelligence with the Ukrainians. The same drones and missiles that Iran supplied to Russia for use in Ukraine, now Russia is helping Iran use them more effectively. It's a vicious cycle of killing technology. This is especially important for the Russian-speaking audience. Russia is waging war in Ukraine. It is indirectly involved in the war in Iran. It is under sanctions, and yet it manages to play on both fronts. How should I put it? This isn't strength, it's desperation. Russia is using the Iranian crisis to distract the U.S. from Ukraine. While Washington is watching the Strait of Hormuz, Kyiv is getting less attention, and less attention means less weapons. The war in Iran and the war in Ukraine are not two separate events. This is one geopolitical theater. Russia understands this. The West understands this too. Now, besides gasoline, what will happen? Everyone is talking about what will happen to oil prices. 120, 150, 140, even 200. But what will happen to food prices in 6 months? Almost no one talks about this, and that's a mistake, by the way. 30% of the world's fertilizer exports pass through the Hormuz Strait. And do you know how much is passing through now? 0. It's planting season in the Northern Hemisphere. Farmers in the US, Europe, and Asia aren't getting fertilizers on time, and they're not getting them at prices that have gone up by 50%. Less fertilizer means smaller harvests. In the fall of 26, smaller harvests mean higher food prices. In 27, this is a classic example of indirect consequences that no one thinks about when making decisions. I'm sure that when Trump started the war, he didn't think about the fact that a year later, corn or beef prices would go up in American supermarkets. That's what it means to anticipate consequences 10 years ahead. It's a topic we constantly discuss in the critical thinking course. The war doesn't end, ladies and gentlemen, when the guns fall silent. It continues in the prices on store shelves for years afterward. Now, naturally, for many of us, what matters to many of us is what will happen to Israel. Israel entered this war with one goal: to destroy the Iranian nuclear program, and if they're lucky, to change the regime there. 5 weeks have passed, and the goal is achieved. And what is the cost? Israel is fighting on 3 fronts at the same time. Iran directly, Lebanon through Hezbollah, and the Houthis who are in Yemen. Iranian missiles are killing people in Haifa and Tel Aviv. Israel has killed more than 250 Iranian leaders. It has destroyed most of the Iranian fleet. And the air defense, the nuclear program have been seriously set back. But Iran is still standing. In the shadow war, it's winning. But its military part, the strategic one, is highly questionable. It's impossible to eliminate the Iranian threat from the air forever. Iran will recover. Well, let's say in 5 years. More likely in 10. And now it has an additional argument in favor of nuclear weapons. See what they're doing to us without it. The thing is, they were making it anyway. But now they have sort of another argument which will be well understood in China and Russia. Conclusion: it's possible to win a battle and lose the war. History offers many such examples. There's even such a thing, I don't know if you know it or not, the Pyrrhic victory, when after 3 or 4 victories, not a single soldier was left. But who really wins? So the US and Israel are winning militarily, and strategically they're stuck. Iran is losing militarily. Well, they lost completely, yes, and strategically they're holding on. The US destroyed 90% of the Iranian fleet. I don't know, maybe 190, 94. Iranian missile strikes dropped by 90%. That means the main Ayatollah was killed. The military success is huge, yes, but the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Oil is at 115. The global economy is suffering. The allies are unhappy. Inside the United States of America, former ally Marjorie Taylor Greene is demanding to invoke the 25th Amendment against Trump. She says he's lost his mind. As a result, Iran has lost its fleet. Air defense, most of the leadership, 85% of petrochemical exports. The military is defeated, but nothing is happening to the regime. The Hormuz Strait is closed. The global economy is suffering. China is paying $2 million per tanker passage. The winner is the one who achieves their goals. The U.S. goal is to eliminate the Iranian nuclear threat and open the Hormuz Strait. The first is partly done, the second isn't. Iran's goal is to survive and preserve the regime. This has been achieved. So, in terms of its goals, Iran has not lost yet. Despite the defeat, despite the military rout. This is what asymmetric warfare is. This war demonstrates a fundamental lesson. Military power and political victory are different things. The U.S. can destroy every bridge, every power plant in Iran. But can it force 90 million people to bring about regime change? From the air? Well, it seems impossible. They knew it in Vietnam, they knew it in Iraq. Apparently, they've forgotten again. And what will happen next? Exactly. We have discussed a dozen of the main questions of this war. Now, the most important thing, what happens next? I'm not a prophet, of course. I'm not a fortune teller. But I know how to read facts and think in scenarios. So what will happen? Here are 4 possible scenarios of what could happen in the next 3 weeks. Let's say until the end of April. Scenario 1, a deal. Probability, 25%. Negotiations through Pakistan yield results. Iran partially opens the Strait of Hormuz. Not completely, but enough for Trump to declare victory. The U.S. stops strikes on civilian infrastructure. Iran gets vague promises regarding sanctions. So why is this possible? The U.S. Department of Energy already assumes in its forecast that the war will not last beyond April, and movement through Hormuz will gradually resume. So we imagine that they are aiming for this kind of deal. Both sides in general feel tired. Pakistan is working hard, making efforts, persuading. Now, why do I say that it's still 25%? And that is, it's not very likely, because Israel is extremely skeptical about the possibility of a deal. Netanyahu insists any truce requires Iran to hand over all enriched uranium and to completely stop enrichment. But Iran is not agreeing to this. Both sides would call such an option a victory. Hormuz reopens halfway. Oil drops there from 115 to 90, and after 3 months it turns out that no one has followed through on anything. And then what? History repeats itself. Scenario 2, escalation. The probability is about 40%.
What's up?
Trump bombs power plants tonight or in the coming days. Iran responds with strikes on the oil industry, infrastructure, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Kuwait. Oil jumps to between 150 and 170. Global recession becomes a reality. And why is this realistic? Because things have to move in some direction. We have to take this further somehow. We can't just sit around like this and lob a few bombs. And now what? Besides, Israel has already approved an updated list of targets, energy and infrastructure facilities of Iran, in case the operation fails. Iran has already warned, if the U.S. strikes power plants, it will no longer hold back from attacking the region's oil infrastructure. After the strikes on Kark Island began today, Iran announced that its restraint regarding the region's oil infrastructure is no longer in effect. We attacked Kark today, in case someone didn't know. And what does this mean for us in the U.S.? Gasoline. $5, around $6 with gag, maybe $7 in California. Groceries are getting more expensive, the beginning of a global recession. Not in a year, but in a month. Scenario 3. Freeze. Well, kind of. Stopped. 30%. Trump postpones the deadline again. The war continues at a medium level of intensity. No massive strikes on power plants. No deal. Iran keeps Hormuz half closed. Negotiations are dragging on. That's generally realistic. Trump has already postponed the deadline several times, each time because the negotiations are going well. He could easily announce today that the negotiations are going well. This allows him to avoid escalating while he weighs his options. Even if the war ends in April, oil production in the region won't return to pre-war levels until the end of 2026. That means oil remains expensive. The economy continues to suffer. No one has won, but everyone is paying the price. Who benefits from the freeze? Definitely Russia. While the U.S. is watching Iran, Ukraine is getting less attention. China continues to buy Iranian oil and pays an extra $2 million for a tanker passage, strengthening its position as a neutral peacemaker. And the fourth scenario, a surprise. Sometimes it's called a black swan event. There's a 5% probability, but the consequences are absolutely unpredictable, something unforeseen. History is full of such moments. Iran, for example, used chemical or biological weapons, or at least they're accused of it. That immediately changes the situation. A strike on Bushehr causes a real radiation leak, not just a rumor, but for real, so that many countries immediately say there's a leak. Now, an internal coup in Iran, it doesn't seem likely, but who knows? Maybe some parts of the IRGC are against the new military figure, the supreme leader, a direct confrontation between American and Chinese warships in the Hormuz Strait. But there could also be a terrorist attack by Iranian operatives on U.S. or Israeli territory, mass casualties. Why should we talk about this even though the probability is very low? Because it's exactly black swans that change history. No one planned World War I because of the assassination of the Archduke. No one planned for September 11 to be the trigger for the war in Iran. In chaos, chances at its highest. Chaos, randomness, and boom, it happened. But after hearing everything I said, you might ask, wait a second, why did Israel and the U.S. still decide to do this when it seems like there's no good way out? Yes, that's right. All the options are bad, either very bad or terrible. And there's practically no good option. So what if the U.S. and Israel hadn't started this war? What was Iran building? Let's stick to the facts. Missiles. Before the war began, Iran planned to increase its production of ballistic missiles from 2,000 to 10,000 units. This isn't a defensive weapon. It's a weapon designed to suppress the air defenses of Israel and its neighbors. Thousands of missiles launched at the same time can overwhelm any interception system. Israeli, American, Saudi, any of them. The math is simple. If you launch 10,000 missiles, some of them will reach Tel Aviv, Haifa, Dimona, Riyadh, and so on. Now Iran was enriching uranium. Iran has enriched uranium. Sounds nice. Up to 60% is just one technical step away from weapons-grade 90% enrichment. The IAEA recorded stocks of highly enriched uranium in underground storage. They mentioned somewhere around 78% or 87%. They mentioned a figure of 78%. According to intelligence estimates, Iran was just a few months away from creating its first device. The device is a bomb, now from Balavli in Lebanon. 150,000 rockets are aimed at Israel. Hamas is in Gaza. What happened in October 2023 was made possible thanks to Iranian funding, training, and weapons. The Houthis are in Yemen. Attacks on Israeli cities and international shipping. Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. And this is the encirclement of Israel from the east. Now picture this. Israel is a country about the size of New Jersey. All around it, on every side, there are armed groups that are funded from a single source. And this center is getting nuclear weapons. So what happens next? As soon as Iran gets a nuclear bomb, the rules of the game change completely. You don't need to use nuclear weapons, it's enough just to have them. This is called a nuclear umbrella. Iran shields its proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas, from any serious retaliatory strike by Israel. The logic is simple. If you strike our allies, we will use nuclear weapons. So de facto, Israel loses its right to self-defense. Step 2. October 1923 in the square. The attack on October 7, 1923 killed 1,200 people and took 300 hostages. It was an operation prepared with Iranian support, but without nuclear cover. Now imagine the same operation, but with a country backing Hamas in Gaza that has a nuclear bomb and 10,000 rockets. Israel cannot respond with full force because Iran is threatening a nuclear strike, and Hamas acts with complete impunity. Step 3. A simultaneous strike from all sides. Hezbollah from the north with 150,000 rockets, Hamas from the south, the Houthis from the southwest, Iranian missiles directly. And Iran swears it has nothing to do with it. This isn't a theory, it's the unified front doctrine that Iran has openly declared. Step 4. Demographic and economic collapse of Israel. The constant threat of a nuclear strike causes mass emigration. In other words, what Israelis have never done before now begins. In addition, businesses leave, investments stop, tourism disappears. It slowly dies under the pressure of the threat, without a single shot fired. There are a couple of arguments made by people who are against the invasion. Iran would never use nuclear weapons because that would be suicide. I have an answer. First of all, you don't need to use nuclear weapons. It's enough to threaten. Saddam didn't use chemical weapons against the U.S. in 1991, but it changed the entire strategy. Secondly, the leadership of Iran has repeatedly and publicly spoken about the destruction of Israel as a strategic goal. This is not rhetoric for a domestic audience. This is state policy, enshrined in official documents. Thirdly, even if the probability of use is low, when it comes to the destruction of a country, even a 5% chance is enough. Now, there's another argument. Israel itself has nuclear weapons, so why can't Iran have them? Answer. If people who ask this question can't figure it out, then in my opinion, they are either foolish or deliberately refuse to see the answer. Israel has never ever threatened to destroy neighboring countries. Israel has not funded terrorist organizations whose goal is the destruction of other countries. Nuclear deterrence works between countries that recognize each other's right to exist. Israel is not recognized by Iran. Iran denies Israel's right to exist. Gentlemen, we could not avoid starting this war, but we could not conduct it in a way that would allow us to win. Whatever happens, it seems that Iran will once again have military production capacity in 5, 7, or 10 years. Will we have to fly out and bomb them again? Maybe. Or maybe everything will be arranged so that we won't have to do that. Or on the contrary, it will be impossible. But not doing that, we had no right. And now we'll watch what happens. It's quite possible that Trump has a solution I don't even know about. Thank you to everyone who came, watched, and stayed until the end. See you next time.